Huples cap. So the time has come for me to actually reuse my N95s and Kitty's N95s from work. So I'll show you what we did with them, but first, the plastic containers that we store them in at work and at home to have sunlight get rid of the virus, we transport them in containers, and the containers themselves, though probably not exposed to viral load, we treat like they may have. So this is the two bags we use, one each. They're not Ziploc, they are press stud, they're freezer bags actually, and very solid, waterproof containers. Airtight would be ideal obviously, and these are the containers we actually drop the mask into. They fully open up so we can just drop the mask in, and then the way to put the mask in is that when we invert the mask like this, you actually have the sunlight on the top. And there you go, it's cooking in the sun, mostly drying out. So I'm wearing one of Janine's masks. I'm not going to be heavily breathing. These are not going to fly up into my airway. I don't need an N95. Depending on the contamination and how many of these I was processing, I might use full PPE including the gown. For this, gloves and a mask so I can't easily inhale anything that might become loose is important. And when I open the containers, at that moment, that's the most massive risk. So what I do is I open them very close to the cooker and I put them onto a dedicated metal tray and then put them immediately, but slowly, you don't want to generate waves of air, into the oven for 30 minutes. The dedicated tray, this will only be used for this. After it is finished and cooled down in the oven, the mask can be removed. I will then Virox this, clean that down as well. When I open the containers, one of the things I'll be doing is once I've got these in the oven, is I'll be Viroxing the insides of this and leaving it open to the sunlight, and then we use them again at work. So there's mine, and there's Kitty's. Kitty's are the most likely highest exposure, therefore I will use mine first. Yeah, the 7N95s, you'll see that Kitty's is broken. I'm going to repair it. It's easy to repair, but I'm going to repair it once it's been cleaned. So these guys have been in the sunlight now for 3 days. It's been very bright sunlight except for today. So I'm fairly confident any surface virus is dead, both in terms of length of time on the product and also exposure to UV light from the sun. I'm now going to put it in the oven for 30 minutes. Like I say, I'm not getting it down to 160, but I'm fairly sure paper won't catch fire at 170. Fairly sure. So to clean the tray and to clean the boxes, both the inside and outside the boxes, I would recommend a strong bleach solution. What we're actually using for this particular purpose is the Lysol. We haven't had a major outbreak yet at work. When we do, I'll switch to a heavier duty wipe that's actually a really strong antiviral agent. But again, you put the liquid on the surface and let the surface dry off, right? Don't dab and dry. Dab, make it wet, leave the surface so it can evaporate, and by evaporation it will help have more surface time to the virus and kill it. Wash your hands, wear a mask, consider wearing a gown, consider wearing a proper N95, depending on the viral count of the masks. Obviously, as and when my hospital goes into surge, we'll be going into that process, and this process will be done a lot more different. But so far I'm quite happy with the system we've got. It's working well, and we are getting ourselves a store of emergency N95s that we can use if and when the hospital runs out of N95s. It's not up to the employer to protect us. They should have done that. They are in fact actually now, interestingly, looking at recycling masks way late in the day. But they're looking at it, and of course the United States of America is rumoured to be stealing our masks and trying to prevent us buying masks, which is kind of interesting, because we're all in this together, and I can't perceive that Canada would actually block sale to America, but people are getting very tribal, and that will have implications in the long run. Wow! So 30 minutes later, it should be done. And like I say, my oven's sticking at 170. Hopefully that'll be okay. So I turn it off, turn the oven off. Oh dear. Right. And then what I would do is I would not open this. I'm going to leave this in until it's cooled down. I'm really happy about this. The foam feels good, straps are good, seems fine. So I think this is definitely the way to go. So there's two in that were broken, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to staple them up and make them functional again, because as I keep telling you guys, just treating everything as single use and throwing it in the garbage is not an option that we should be looking at. You've got to make sure that you personally have N95s if you work in the healthcare field, or if you're a paramedic or a policeman or a fireman. And I would strongly advise that you collect your masks and recycle them and reuse them if no single use is available at your employer. It is not the time to run out and then try and figure out what you're going to do next. The projections of use, the projections of supply clearly tell me in Ontario, in the Greater Toronto area, there is going to be outages of PPE. It's up to me to do what I can do to improve my chance of survival and lessen my chance of passing it on to other people working in healthcare. It's vital. And like I say, the hospital's apparently now looking at recycling masks. Meanwhile, we've thrown away tens of thousands of them over the last 5 weeks, put them in garbage bags, sent them to landfills. People needed to grasp the enormity of the war that we're in. This is World War C. We are going to take casualties. We have to do everything we can to limit the casualties. Once that has been done, only when that has been done, will be the time to look at the economy and to look at international trade. People have to get over being selfish, and they have to work as a team. Canadians, Americans, Mexicans, North Americans, we need to work together. Our three great countries need to work together to defeat this. Tribalism is not going to help. Well, that's all from me. Have a nice day. Toodles. This was a Bad Terrier 2020 production.